Captain America Civil War is directed by the Russo brothers and stars all of your favourite Marvel characters and is the third in the Captain America series and like the 13th, 14th, 15th Marvel movie. But thankfully up to this point it's not getting old, and this movie is just another example of that. These movies are not getting old. By God, they're just getting better. Age of Ultron notwithstanding, that was an Avengers movie. This is a Captain America movie first and foremost. Even though we have all these other players in it, this really does feel like a continuation of Captain America Civil War and a little bit of a continuation of Age of Ultron. And this movie is loosely based on a rather iconic series of comic books, the Civil War storyline. This movie is slightly different. It's more skewed to like how they've managed to work that story into this current Marvel universe. Obviously, a lot of characters in the comic book version aren't available to them, so they've done the best with what they've got left. And by God, they did a great job. So this movie kicks off with the Avengers team we were left with at the end of Age of Ultron. A lot of the original players aren't there. We've got a few new introductions. They're on a mission, some stuff goes wrong, and this kicks off the Sokovia Accords, which basically says the Avengers are going to be overruled by a governing body that will say when and where they go and who they go after. The Avengers will no longer be autonomous. They will have the United Nations telling them, look, this is what we want you to go after, this is where we want you to go, this is what we want you to do. And Cap, he's got some issues with that. But on the other side of it, Tony Stark, he wants this. He's sick of all these civilian casualties. He's someone who has dealt with that a lot from his arms dealing days, and he sort of feels like it's his responsibility to make the Avengers more accountable for their actions. So in that we have two opposing ideals and Civil War. Okay, first off, the action in this movie is fucking amazing. This is some of the best action scenes in not just a Marvel movie, not just a comic book movie, but just movies in general. Holy shit. And I know everyone's already said it, that fucking airport scene, just fucking wow. Like, it is just some of the coolest use of not only comic book characters, but just utilizing their abilities and showcasing all of that, but at the same time showcasing their personalities while these fights are going on. We've got people who are friends who don't necessarily want to be in this situation, fighting off against each other. There's some quips back and forward as it's all going down, but at the end of the day, there is this sort of serious undertone to the whole thing, and just go and watch it. It is fucking awesome. And in this, of course, we get our first real look at Spider-Man, Peter Parker, in this Marvel universe. Tom Holland, perfect. Just absolutely perfect. The best Spider-Man put to film so far by a long shot. Look, I love Tobey Maguire. I thought he did a good job. Andrew Garfield wasn't too bad. I thought he was a bit too cool and a bit smarmy to be Spider-Man. Tom Holland, perfection. He is great. Not only as Peter Parker, but as Spider-Man as well. I cannot wait to see what they do with him standalone. I cannot wait to see what they do with him in future Avengers movies. He is just great and one of the best parts of this movie. Another awesome addition to this cast is Black Panther, played by Chadwick Boseman, and we get a fair bit of him in this movie. He's kind of integral to the plot. Once again, not giving the plot away, spoiler free, but his addition is fantastic. A lot of the fight scenes he is in, including the big airport scene, are fantastic. Great casting choice, great character, can't wait to see the standalone movie. All thumbs up. And another thing that is synonymous with Marvel movies is the humor, and the humor in this movie is pretty much on point the whole way through. There's humor where it needs to be. There is a very, very serious overtone to this movie, as there should be. This is, you know, probably the most serious, up there with like Winter Soldier for a Marvel movie, but there is still humor. There is still that typical Marvel humor sprinkled where it needs to be throughout this movie, and once again, it's just perfect. It's just really well done. It's not over the top. It's not too cringy. It is just that sort of typical awesome Marvel humor where it needs to sit to give this movie a little bit of levity. We've talked about the heroes, now let's talk about the villain, Baron Zemo. Did he suffer from Malekith syndrome? That is a syndrome I give to all Marvel villains that do not really do much or have much of a motivation. And I'm kind of on the fence with this one. He kind of suffered from Malekith syndrome, but overall his involvement in the movie, especially towards the end, allowed the plot to keep going, but I feel like if you had have cut his part of the movie out, the plot would have got there eventually. So it's kind of hard to say, you know, if there is a cut of the movie out there without him in it. I don't know whether it would have worked quite as well, but it is just another case of a Marvel villain that's not fully fleshed out. But that aside, everything else in this movie is fantastic. It pays homage to the comic book where it needs to. It continues the Captain America story really well. It continues the story of the Avengers really well, and sort of leaves us with a lot of questions that will hopefully be answered down the line in Infinity Wars and a few of the standalones in between. And I feel like this is the start of a trend where a lot of these standalone Marvel movies are going to start to introduce more and more members of the Avengers into them as we go forward, and I think it's going to culminate in just this huge group of people in Infinity War, obviously to take on Thanos in that Infinity Gauntlet. But it was just a really good way to sort of make the Marvel Universe feel just so much bigger than it already is. And that's a pretty big task. But I think the Russo brothers and their fantastic direction in this movie have succeeded in that. And it's skyrocketed instantly to like top 3 of my Marvel movies. It is like Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, and now this. It's just fantastic. And one of the best things I really didn't mention is the fact that most of the way through this movie, you're sort of flip-flopping between who you think is right. There's a lot of reasons why Cap is right. There's a lot of reasons why Tony Stark is right. You sort of find yourself going back and forward a lot, which I think is the point of this movie. And I think that's the reason why having this overarching villain didn't really need to be in the movie. Really, the antagonist of the movie was the opposing side of who you were favouring at the time. But it is a superhero movie, and you need to have like some big villain at the end, so look, I'll look past it. So with the kind of weak villain aside, the great action, the great humour, the really, really well told story, I'm giving Captain America Civil War 4.5 out of 5 Avengers. So have you seen Captain America Civil War? What did you think? Let me know in the comments down below. Click right here for all your movie needs. As always guys, catch you in the next one.